Dana White adds to the entertainment aspect of the MMA business. The best part is that it's not even an act, it's who he is. Most of the time, Dana's straightforward and fearless replies are second to none. Dana may be very biased with his opinions sometimes, but if there is one thing that everyone will agree on, it's his strong passion for the sport. Join us in today's video as we delve into the UFC fights that infuriated Dana White the most. 10. Israel Adesanya vs. Yoel Romero, UFC 248. At the UFC 148, fight fans expected an exciting showdown between the two top fighters in the division, Adesanya and Romero. However, what they got was the direct opposite. The fight turned out to be passive, with the pair exchanging only a few blows, although Adesanya managed to secure a unanimous victory due to his leg kicks. The lack of action left both fans and the UFC president dissatisfied. Immediately after the event, White blamed Romero for the boring fight. According to White, Romero should have come out aggressively to attack Adesanya. White, who doesn't know how to hold back his feelings, revealed that the matchmakers initially hesitated to set up the bout due to Romero's two-fight losing streak. However, he pushed for the fight because he was a massive fan. 9. Anderson Silva vs. Demian Maia. The UFC's inaugural visit to Abu Dhabi occurred at UFC 112 and featured a promising lineup. With 3 finishes on the main card and a thrilling showdown between Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn, the UFC organizers anticipated a triumphant debut in the new market. However, the main event saw Silva dominating Maia in a boring bout. Silva played with his opponent for a larger part of the fight. Despite being the superior striker, Anderson Silva chose not to engage or finish the fight in the earlier rounds. He spent the majority of the bout showboating, dancing, and avoiding confrontation, frustrating both Maia and the audience. Silva's actions were widely criticized as disrespectful and contrary to fair competition and sportsmanship principles. The fight later ended in a unanimous decision in favor of Silva, but White was furious. Dana publicly criticized him after the bout and announced that he would be disciplined for his actions. The UFC changed its regulations to address the situation and adopted a more proactive stance against unsportsmanlike conduct in the Octagon. They introduced stricter penalties, including potential fines and disqualification, to discourage similar behavior in future fights. 8. Curtis Blaydes vs. Alexander Volkov. Dana White didn't hold back his criticism of Curtis Blaydes after his 5-round UFC main event against Alexander Volkov. Despite securing a unanimous decision victory, Blaydes fell short of his predictions of ragdolling his opponent. Blaydes was aiming for a UFC heavyweight title shot at the time, having previously lost to the #1 contender, Francis Ngannou. However, White dismissed the idea of Blaydes getting a title shot. Dana stated that Blaydes had engaged in much trash talk leading up to the fight, but looked foolish due to his gassing out in the 3rd round. White highlighted the importance of backing up talk with action, stating that when someone talks trash, they better be prepared to deliver a dominating performance. 7. Dennis Hallman vs. Brian Ebersol. Now, this is a fight that earned White's anger for a unique reason: the fighter's attire. Dennis Hallman and Brian Ebersol met at the mid-PPV card of UFC 133. The matchup will always be remembered because Hallman chose to show up in a Speedo. Many were puzzled about how the UFC approved such attire, but it may have contributed to the decision to later partner with Reebok. Dana White was embarrassed by the unconventional outfit. White was glad when Ebersol won the fight in the 1st round via TKO. The UFC president even gave him an extra $70,000 bonus for ending the fight early. 6. Georges St-Pierre vs. Johnny Hendricks. Georges St-Pierre's tenure as the welterweight division champion ended at UFC 167 when he announced he was taking a break following a controversial decision victory over Johnny Hendricks. After the fight, Dana White publicly said to the media that he disagreed with the judge's decision and did not believe GSP had won. White was furious with the judge's decision and St. Pierre's post-match remarks about taking a break from the sport. Dana expressed his dissatisfaction with St. Pierre's comments and essentially issued an ultimatum, suggesting that St. Pierre should either fulfill his responsibilities as champion or retire from the sport altogether. 5. Francis Ngannou vs. Derek Lewis. The fight between Ngannou and Lewis easily qualifies as one of the worst fights in UFC history. What could have been an explosive bout turned out to be uninteresting. Surprisingly, the two fighters were known for their thunderous KO power, so everyone expected a fight of the night or knockout of the night performance. However, what happened was what Dana White referred to as an abomination. Although the two fighters were at fault, White felt Lewis's performance was understandable. Since he had to deal with back issues, White was more critical of Ngannou, attributing his boring fight to Cameroonian's ego and inactivity during the fight. 4. Clay Guida vs. Gray Maynard. The clash between Clay Guida and Gray Maynard is the exact definition of a fight with great potential. They were both famous for their aggressive fighting style. Fans looked forward to a bout that would take one of them to the peak of the lightweight division. However, what transpired was 5 rounds of Guida and Maynard cautiously pacing the octagon in circles. The fight ended in a split decision win for Maynard. From the statistics, Guida and Maynard landed 101 strikes throughout the 25-minute main event. At that time, this record made it one of the least action-packed main events in the promotion's history. Dana expressed his disappointment after the fight, saying, "I thought this fight couldn't suck. I was wrong." And, "First time I've ever seen Guida booed out of the building. I am booing too." 3. Tyron Woodley vs. Demian Maia. Tyron Woodley defending his belt against Demian Maia at UFC 214 is another boring fight. Throughout 5 rounds, only 86 punches were landed. Although Woodley secured the victory, Dana White heavily criticized him, arguing that Woodley, as the superior and more robust striker, had ample opportunities to engage in the fight. White claimed Woodley could have quickly finished Maia in the first or second round. Woodley's performance affected his marketability in Dana's eyes. Dana later confirmed UFC's decision to proceed with Georges St. Pierre's return against middleweight champion Michael Bisping rather than a comeback at welterweight against Tyron Woodley. 2. Tito Ortiz vs. Forrest Griffin 3. The UFC 148 was significant for many reasons. It was the end of the epic trilogy of Tito Ortiz and Forrest Griffin. However, it later became the last UFC appearance for both fighters. Griffin won the fight via a unanimous decision, but that wasn't the highlight of the night. His attitude overshadowed the win. Dana was not pleased with their performance in the octagon because they were both slow. White decided that it would be best time for the two of them to part ways with the UFC. In addition to criticizing the fight, Dana was particularly furious with Griffin, who stormed out of the cage before a decision was announced. Griffin returned to the cage later, but what he did afterward was even worse. He grabbed the mic from Joe Rogan and engaged in a final UFC post-fight interview with Ortiz, a peculiar sequence of events that did not sit well with the boss. 1. Jon Jones vs. Matt Hamill. The only blemish on Jon Jones's record came from a disqualification against Matt Hamill at UFC, the Ultimate Fighter 10 finale. Jones landed several 12-6 elbows, prompting referee Steve Mazzagatti to halt the bout. As Hamill couldn't continue, the fight was called off, with Hamill declared the winner via disqualification. Dana White voiced his displeasure with this ruling, stating, "It shouldn't have happened that way." In the years following the loss, the promotion searched for opportunities to alter the decision, but they have been unsuccessful. Given Jones's mind-blowing career and prolonged championship reign, his marketability as an undefeated champion like Khabib Nurmagomedov would have been good for business. Unfortunately, Steve Mazzagatti's decision deprived Dana White, Jon Jones, and the UFC of this opportunity, further fueling Dana's frustration. Do you agree with Dana's outbursts in these fights? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.